thank you so much for coming in on this telesummit. So I want to introduce you to everyone who's watching. This is Jim. He's one of my dearest friends, and he's the executive director he's the executive director of professional practice, leadership development, and research, founding executive director of the Academy of Kaiser Permanente's Scholars Academy. Right now, he is in California. He's been working with Gene Watson's board for many, many years. He has been one of my favorite people. He is a visionary. He is someone who has created many, many things and taken a system like Kaiser and really created a whole culture shift and change, embracing caring science, embracing heart math. And I'm so delighted you're here on this call, because what I'm really interested in is listening to your wisdom and the vision that you have for us now and for the future.
Oh, thanks, Mary. First of all, my heart goes out to everybody listening in to this. You know, this is a really difficult time, and I applaud your efforts to bring people together. And kind of my topic or my gift when you originally asked me before all of this hit was around social coherence and harmony, and what I like to call harmonic convergence of the universe, you know, and how singing bowls have become an instrument within caring science, but how they represent so much more. And what better time than now with social distancing and the crisis of epic proportions around the world, the crisis that people are in, and just the devastating effects of it. You know, we're not isolate beasts by ourselves. We need connection to each other. And it just reminds me years ago of an article Gene wrote on the ability of virtual communities, and that people, even though physically may not be in the same room or in the same presence, they still have the ability to have that connection and deeper connection. I think we've learned that through her Facebook videos and a lot of the things that are out there on social media, where the world has shifted suddenly. And some of us would say maybe for the better in the long run. It's certainly painful right now, and hopefully we'll move through it and get to a different place, and a positive place. So it's really special to be a part of this. I thank you, Mary, for doing it and for bringing us together. And I guess I'll let you lead, you know, what would be best to share.
Well, I think what I'm really looking for is we're coming at a time where there's so much disruption. And how can we as nurses, I think I originally thought of this telesummit as a way to throw out, like Gene says, let's throw the road out ahead of us. Let's create our future. Who's better to know what we're going to need in the future for healthcare than nurses? You know, because, you know, right now things were changing from healthcare practices to business practices, and the underlying values of what was really important as healthcare, I think, was missing. And I thought nurses, the leadership and vision of nurses really filled the gap, and how we have to become inspired. You know, how do we inspire each other? How do we lead each other? How do we give each other specific steps that we can take to move into this future? So I really wanted to talk to you about what you've created. You've created an outstanding system at Kaiser. You were able to make some changes in clinical practice and in education models. And I just wanted you to sort of be an oracle of what's possible in nursing, because that's what I see you as being.
Yeah, that's it. I had to be the oracle, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't have any other role. Thank you for that. I think what strikes me as you're sharing what's on your heart, I think it's this convergence of everything together. I don't think anyone in healthcare would deny that healthcare is seriously broken. And we might ripple that out as we're just a reflection of, you know, a larger world that is in great disruption and needs some dramatic change. And despite, you know, whatever accomplishments we may have as nurses in leadership now, we still are in an upward or uphill struggle for equal footing, for a balance between what is an economic requirement and social, I think, social consciousness around affordability and access, and making sure that every human being has access to health prevention and promotion and wellness. And we don't have that in our world. And we have shining examples here and there, but they're still flawed. And our world now has made a dramatic shift, as we said. And I think part of this is, isn't it wonderful to see nurses just shining so beautifully through all of this?
Yes.
The outpouring of love, the incredible support of communities. I think the incredible recognition around the world of how important nurses are. We've always known that we are. But it's really nice to have some affirmation from the world as to our deeper value for wellness and well-being and trust. I think we know, certainly recognized, the profession is recognized for, I think, 18 years in a row as the most ethical profession here in the United States. And that doesn't fall empty at times like this, because at no other time are people so vulnerable. And our systems are vulnerable, our world is vulnerable. And it seems that the nurses, as Jean has always said, hold space for that love, that care, that courage, the dedication to really lift up humanity and to represent that archetype of love and caring and compassion. So it's a beautiful time in that sense, amidst a great tragedy of, as we said, epic proportion. It can't be understated that our healthcare systems are not just economically a disaster and politically driven, and all of the different agendas that collide in healthcare. But the thing that I would like to say as an oracle and a visionary for the future is part of my personal passion and part of the drive that I have for the Scholars Academy, which we've created, it's now in its 5th year. We went from not one CNE in our 21 hospitals in just Northern California to virtually now over 90% of our CNEs are doctorally prepared. Wow. And the majority of them are practice doctorates, not PhDs, but they are the experts in interpreting, integrating, and expanding best practices and supporting original research in healthcare. They also are growing a voice at the same time. And by growing a voice, it isn't that they didn't have a voice, it's that their voice couldn't be heard. It was drowned out by a lot of, I think, people who wanted nurses to become mini MBAs. And I know many nurses have dual degrees, and I myself in my younger career, people encouraged me to get an MBA if I wanted to get ahead in healthcare. I had one very wise mentor who said to me, and it wasn't Jean, but it was someone very close to me like Jean, and she said to me, why would you get a generic degree? You're a nurse. You need a specialized degree, and you'll learn about healthcare, economics, and finance, and you can learn all of those financial pieces, but you must pursue an advanced degree in nursing. And that stuck with me. And I believe we become very good stewards economically, but I also think nurses, in advancing their education and practices and the many decades of experience most of our leaders have, has brought them to a place of interpreting between the economics and the care at hand, second to none. And therefore, my vision for the future would be, there will be a time in the near future, I believe, where nurses will not be governed and not be run by non-nurses. Physicians would never tolerate having non-physicians, as a matter of fact, they don't now, govern their individual practices or their collective practices. And I believe nurses, a lot of their moral distress, a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the conflicts for professional nurses arise out of the fact that a lot of business decisions and things that nurses believe is important to care for patients, families, and communities is ultimately throttled or governed by non-nurses.
Exactly.
And that is one of the main things that I think really compels me on my journey, is that I really want nurses to reclaim what they should have. I don't think any man ever told Florence Nightingale how she should run her practices or her schools or any of her individual professional adventures. I think she was quite remarkable and a great example to all of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I think, what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking is Florence Nightingale was such a visionary in being able to create this profession. We need, right now, there may not be one nurse that rises to the top, you know, Jean and yourself and their nursing leaders, but it's a collective of us that needs to stand up and say, this is, you know, she was very clear about what the future was. And because of her clarity, it created a professional trajectory to where nursing became what it is today. And how can nursing become what it needs tomorrow? We need to define that now.
Well, it's interesting. I was having this conversation with another colleague just this week, and we were talking about Florence and how all the epidemiologic evidence and data and the things that we know Florence Nightingale brought back 150 years ago are still true today.
Yes.
And her concepts are still true today. So she was an incredible visionary, but the thing I mentioned to my colleague is, and yes, but she had to work through a male-dominated political system.
She did.
And she found her voice, and she found an advocate, and she had someone who lifted her voice up and gave, I guess you would say at the time, probably a lot of credibility. I think we still have, as we've learned in recent years, we have a lot of biases, prejudices, sexism, a lot of oppression in cultures around the world. And I think female professions in particular, and being a male in one of the dominant female professions, it's incredible to me how sexist our systems are and how they oppress the females. And I mean female meaning the profession itself, that nurturing, caring essence, you know, the healing essence of a nurse. It's always talked about as soft stuff, yet many of us as leaders know if all the soft stuff is in place, it's actually the hardest part of the job. But more importantly, all of the outcomes and the results follow.
Yes.
But try it the other way around, scripting nurses, driving nurses to performance, managing metrics, spending all their time in offices, printing off run sheets and looking at Excel, taking them away from the point of care to manage the minutia of or the tyranny of data is probably a good way to say it, at a point when they should be out on the floor with their teams, navigating care, supporting relationships, building healing environments, and being the backbone of the hospital. They are still being shaped in the image of this dominant economic industrialized model. And we have to break away from it. And it doesn't mean abdicate your responsibility and accountability to data. As a matter of fact, as scientists, I really resent anyone ever saying that. We are dedicated to data. I can tell you a lot of emotional decisions, even with COVID. How about students being able to come into these sick environments when we don't have PPE? We're struggling with our own staff and communities about exposure. We're doing social distancing, but we want unlicensed nurses who haven't established competency to come into the hospital and be at the bedside or be in this, you know, petri dish of potential COVID. So one of the initial pieces that I advanced within Kaiser was we need to take a stand and protect and advocate the nurses of the future. This is not the time for them to be vulnerable on the front lines. And I know a lot of people disagree with that. I've been told that many times.
Right.
But I don't think now is the time. So my point is that a lot of emotions this conjured up a lot of emotions.
Right.
And people were really trying to be convincing about how important it was that students could learn from this experience. Students should be at the point of care. Students need this. They're going to be short of hours. They're not going to graduate. It went on and on and on. And in reality, it was lacking all of the evidence and all of the information we still see today.
Right.
In other words, we don't have adequate testing. Our government can't produce PPE to even protect our own nurses. They're wearing garbage bags on the East Coast. Why would you subject a novice nursing student who is not deemed competent by society to those treacherous and, quite frankly, frightening potential outcomes? So again, I think nurses use data, use evidence, make strong decisions, have to take a stand even when it's uncomfortable, and
Right.
opposing or against great opposition, because other people see student nurses as potential extra hands or resources that could be available if we had a surge or whatever. That's not going to happen. Not on my watch as a nurse leader.
Right.
And I was so proud of Kaiser that they took the stand and continue to uphold that despite the pressures from many around that we should be allowing students to come in. It's something that I think really speaks highly of the organization, and it's one of their shining points in my opinion. But it is also, I would like to think, more broad spread than that. But I would really struggle to tell you that we don't sometimes hit the mark as an organization. You know, I mean, we misjudge the signposts. We sometimes take a focus that is not in the best interests of where we need to be going, but maybe it's the short-term important thing to do for someone. But the bigger picture might be missing. I think nurses are very good at reading signs. They're very keen assessors.
Right.
They're very intellectual and sophisticated. They have the potential to lead these organizations into the future in a way they've never been led before. And that's what I'm waiting for.
That I agree. I think that, well, it's been really amazing watching, you know, you create the future of education in your academy that you've done. And Gene always quotes that someone might have asked you something, you know it better. What if we educated all these people and they left? Tell us that story.
When I started the academy, I was asked to do it by our senior leaders. One who happens to be the president of Kaiser now, who is a nurse, by the way.
Right.
But a lot of other leaders, non-nurses, were challenging me about, so what's the return on investment? What's the hook? In other words, if you're going to pay for the education of all of these people, you know, what does Kaiser get in return? Well, you know, I would expect that lower level thinking. And I'm graceful under pressure. I'd like to think sometimes, even though I'm Italian. I came back with the retort that, you know, it reminds me of a quote that I saw recently where it said, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. And we got a few laughs. And I said, but the reality is this: many people in healthcare believe that, you know, investment in education is an expense, but it's an investment in the future. And it's essential, just like it is to fund research and to advance technology. Our people are the knowledge workers of the future. They are the leaders of tomorrow. We need to equip them with a whole new set of tools and intellectual skills and abilities, and expand their minds and thinking and their hearts at the same time, so that they're able to rise up and fill that gap and to hopefully do it better than we ever could do. That's my hope. So yes, it's you can jokingly say, yeah, if you think the cost is going to be expensive, let's try not doing it.
Exactly.
And let them stay. So we can educate them and they can leave and they can support a community in new, rich ways, or we can not educate them and they can stay here. Which would you prefer?
Right. That was amazing. That was a great quote. And that's true. What if we don't educate the future? What if we don't empower These are the knowledge workers, like you said. This is the future of healthcare.
Absolutely.
And what you've done has been incredible, because I've watched you like for so many years. You're like a shining star that's just like gone off in the sky. You know, from when I first met you and you were at Scottsdale with Jean and, you know.
I think even before that, I think.
I know.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing. And what's come out of this garden of education and consciousness to create a value system for nurses. And then with education, how we can rise and become the leaders of the future, which you are the leader of what was the past. Now you're the leader of the present.
Well,
but
we
you're a
are the
leader of
ones
the
we were
future.
seeking, right? We are the ones we were seeking. Step up, you know? And I just love the passion. I'm blown away by nurses who are taking on doctoral studies in the midst of COVID. I have 5 new CNEs in a doctoral program. I happen to be faculty for one of their first courses. And I've really been concerned about how they would navigate the demands and rigors of a doctoral program while they're leading with incredible courage and dedication 24/7 in these facilities to navigate COVID. And I'm blown away at the responses of people, the creative solution seeking that they come up with, you know, the conversations we've had. And we started these, tomorrow's our first day with the CNEs, but my team has been doing a cup of coffee and a spoonful of inspiration every Friday. And it's a virtual meeting with my teams from across Northern California. There's no agenda. There's no business, not allowed. It's all about connections, relationships. How are you doing? You know, what's going on in your life? What are you doing to exercise or take care of yourself? Is there anything you need? And the response to that, even though we do it at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, has been overwhelming. Yes. So we had planned this for the CNEs all along.
Right.
And we put it out, and one of my colleagues who I adore said, I'm really nervous, you know, are the CNEs going to make the time to join this? Right. And I said, I believe if we put it out there, throw the road out, right, they'll come. And sure enough, this morning I was on a conference call with her and she said, Jim, I'm blown away. You should see the responses from the CNEs. We offered 2 different times for them to join. And the responses were, thank you, we need this.
Oh, thank you, they need this.
We need it.
They
In other
really
words,
do.
no more digits, no more widgets, no more
Right.
worries, but give me some space that's clean and safe and confidential and something that nurtures my soul.
That is what we need right now. It's
Yeah.
so important. And one of my dreams is, you know, I really feel that nurses people who have gone into nursing have gone into nursing for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just to help people, it's really to be in service.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things I was thinking, you know, I was a call to nurses, because nurses don't go into nursing to become powerful and head a corporation and do all these different things. And they don't go into nursing to make a lot of money. They go into nursing with a heart, a dedication. I mean, nursing is hard work.
It is very hard.
It's 24/7.
More than anyone can know if they haven't done it themselves, especially as a senior nurse leader. You carry the burdens, like Jean would say. Nurses carry on their shoulders the weight of all of this, you know, despair and humanity that we are entrusted to care for. I love your analogy around helping people find their calling. Because I, as a young faculty person many years ago at USD in San Diego, I was just a pup. And there were a lot of senior faculty who were, I was part of forming a MEPN program, a master's entry into nursing. And so, you know, I was a rogue coming in and doing something totally different. And this was people with 2nd careers, 3rd careers, some of them, masters prepared, wanting to come into nursing. And everyone said it's around the economy. It's because they want money. And there was all this dialogue going on at the faculty discussions. Right. And finally I said, out of my naivety, or maybe just, you know, being bold, I said, you know, it just really intrigues me that we would consider that a negative. I don't really care why anyone comes to nursing.
Right.
But I do think it makes it incumbent upon you and I as faculty to make damn sure that before they ever graduate, they find their calling.
Yes.
And that, you know, you have these little epiphany moments when you say things, you speak something, it sets a vibration out. That lit my soul up. And I never looked back after that. As far as my dedication to students and understanding of the fragilities of how people enter in, so vulnerable, so trusting and whatever. And now it translates into my advocacy for these very same students of not allowing them, even though they may innocently want to, or they may volunteer to, of saying it's not right time for you to be in this environment. And it will come back quickly, and we will have a recover process, and we will help you get what you need to be the best nurse ever.
Of course.
But we can't exclude people and pick and choose who comes to nursing. They're coming for whatever reason.
Exactly.
And we've got to make something, you know, harmonic out of that coming together, that we inspire them. We model the way for them. We give them hope of what I could be. I have a lot of students say, you know, I'm looking up to you. I want to be like you. And of course, every teacher loves to hear that. But, you know, it's not about ego. I mean, like you said, ego will fail you. It's the worst trait of any leader, truthfully. And the one that probably destroys more leaders than anybody is their ego. But it is about realizing how much people look to us for strength, and look to us for hope, and look to us for a future beyond what is, and the infinite possibilities of what they might become in the future if they became a nurse, and when they do become a nurse, you know.
I love what you talked about, where the harmonic, the coherence of our profession. Can you just speak to that? Like, that to me is a collective of what's possible in the future, how we create that connection with each other, ourselves as a group.
Yeah, did you remember in, I think it was 2010 was Florence Nightingale's, the centenary of her passing.
Yeah.
And we did the Million Nurse campaign.
Exactly.
With Jean. And the goal was to, if we could get 1 million nurses around the globe at a specific time to radiate consciousness, love, and intentionality on the world and on healing and whatever, that we could actually shift the stratosphere, you know, as Hartman talks about. You can shift the universe. The universe has a rhythm. And the art, the beauty, and the science of that rhythm is so does the human body. And the radiance of a human spirit individually is what we're attracted to, more than likely. There's lots of things, right? But the ability of the old Margaret Mead expression, never underestimate what a few dedicated people can accomplish. And we see it throughout history, time after time after time. We just finished a book on the history of Kaiser nursing. And the beacons over the past 75 years that paved the way for in-room baby boarding for mom and baby. The first nurse practitioners in the state of California. There is the first Black Nurses Association group meeting in Oakland, which now is still in effect around the country. The diversity, the leadership, the things that came from Kaiser were so rich, it overwhelmed me, and we wrote a book about it. But what became very apparent to me is those small group of nurses in the beginning set the entire culture for the future, which is today. Those same vibrations, even though many of them are still alive and active in our alumni group and interact with us all the time, we adore them. Their energy still permeates every nurse in Kaiser Permanente. And how do you take that radiance and then, you know, kind of geometrically, you know, as we see with horrible things like viruses, But how do you propagate that from one hospital to a region, to a particular geographic demographic, and then to a country, and then to a world? And it's through this connection and sense of who we are and what we're giving the universe, our role in the universe as healers. I think Jean has really taught us well about how important it is to find that space within us that we are the healers and we are the light in institutional darkness. And I often use the waveforms of light are often referred to as coherent light and incoherent light.
Right.
Most of us know the difference because if you have a headlight on your car, you can see maybe 20, 30 feet ahead of you. If you put a laser light on the front of your car, you can see from San Francisco to Chicago, as long as nothing got in your way. Because it's extremely coherent. And when you have incoherent light, like white light, you touch a bulb and burn your fingers, but you move away a few inches and you barely feel the heat of it. Right. So the ineffectiveness of incoherent vibration is that we're constantly colliding and canceling each other out. We have no uniform, unified voice. And therefore we lose our strength. We lose our focus. We lose our incredible power as a profession if we're not coherent. And that means we speak with one voice.
We speak with one voice.
Speak with one voice. We love unconditionally. We represent something beyond ourselves. We represent love and caring and nurturing in the world. We're not financial analysts, although that might be part of our role. We first and foremost are healers.
That is amazing. And I wanted to share with you as we conclude, I brought the healing book.
Oh,
this is nice. So great. Jim introduced me to this. So as we conclude this time that we've spent together, and thank you so much, I want to appreciate you so much for the vision and the work and the contribution that you've brought to nursing. And in conclusion, what you said was, which I think is really beautiful, and in this moment to just meditate on nursing becoming one voice, one heart, one love, committed to unconditional love, and stepping forth and rising into the future.
Make it happen. Yeah.
Make it happen.
Make it happen.
I love you. I love you. I wish I could hug you. Let me give you a big virtual hug. I love you.
I love you too.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Take care.
Be in touch. Bye-bye.
So long.
Bye.
Bye.